Welcome to Finding Home, a podcast about life, change, and what it really means to feel at home here at St. John's United. This is where we share real stories about what life is like in senior living. You'll hear from residents, their families, and the staff who support them. If you're thinking about a move for yourself, someone you love, or just want to know what life here is really like, these conversations offer honesty, advice, and reflections on what it means to be welcomed into a community that's here for you through one of life's more unexpected and challenging changes, finding a new place to call home. Because at St. John's United, home isn't just a place. It's the people and the moments that make life worth living. And there is so much life to live. I'm Erin, your host and occupational therapy student working at St. John's United. Today, I'm joined by Kelly, Director of Community Engagement at St. John's, who's here to share her story and experiences serving those in senior living. Kelly, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, to start off, Kelly, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am Kelly Holmes. I was raised here in Billings, graduated from high school at senior high, pursued college here in the state of Montana, moved away for a number of years, moved out of state actually for a number of years, and then moved back into Montana in 2016. And that was kind of a bittersweet in a little bit of a way, in the sense that the job I had out prior to moving back to Montana was like full of travel and full of lots of kind of excitement, if you will. And I came back to Montana, parted ways with that company, and went to St. John's to interview about a position that maybe they were thinking of hiring, and honestly, instantly fell in love. And just the way that the role was described to me was everything that I had been doing. The opportunity was everything that I felt like I could do. And my mother passed away a couple years after I had started at St. John's. And so by my continuing to still be there at St. John's, I really feel like I'm still with my mom. I get to help, people that are her friends, people, community members that she knew or didn't know, but just people that live at St. John's, really embody what my mom was like. And so for me, it's a very it's just a really good place to be.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
That is super special and unique. And yeah, they're lucky to have you for a
Well,
lot of reasons.
thanks. I mean, it's really fun. I mean, it's a different environment, and I don't know if anyone ever like graduates from high school and says like, "Oh, I want to go live in a, or I want to go work at a senior retirement community," because it's not as like exciting as like, "Oh, I want to go work for the SEC and do play by play on national TV." But once you get into that market and into that environment, it's equally as exciting, and it's very rewarding, which is the beauty of the job.
Absolutely. And you do a lot of activity planning for these folks.
I do.
Correct.
I
Okay.
do. Yep. I have a really strong team. We have 8 ladies that are on my team, and we plan everything from manicures, bingos, to community concerts, to live performances. We have great partnerships with various organizations in Billings. We bring them in, they will do live shows, they'll do musicals, they'll do almost anything that we ask them to. And yet at the same time, we'll bring them in, and our residents are equally as excited to share with them experiences that they've had. And so it's really kind of just a really good partnership between what St. John's residents do and what the community of Billings does.
Absolutely. I've heard people joke that living at St. John's is kind of like living on a cruise ship.
Yeah,
And by the way you describe all these activities, it sure seems that way.
yeah, it's really, we honestly, the folks on my staff, my team, we try to make their lives every day is similar to what they would do if they were living independently on Grand Avenue or Miles Avenue, whatever that street was that they moved into, be it Mission Ridge, the Vista, any of the cottages, Chapel Court. Try to mimic their everyday life as much as we can within the limitations that we have. So if they like to garden, we like to garden. If they like to go out and watch the bees and the birds, we go out and we watch the bees and the birds. We really try to cater to what the residents like and what their interests are and their hobbies, and I think that that's the beauty of it.
That is beautiful. Yeah, taking that real home environment, bringing it with them, the
Hmm.
non-tangible things that you can't pack in a box that
Yep.
people really need and value.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
So speaking of activities, what do you like to do in your rare free time that you get, Kelly?
I love to ski. I love to downhill ski.
Nice.
I like to trail hike.
Ooh,
I am kind of a big bookworm, so I will spend any rainy afternoon like engrossed in some fabulous book that I'm reading.
yes.
I also just I like to spend time with my friends.
Mm,
I've got I've obviously a good group of friends here in the Billings community, so I spend a lot of time with them and just just kind of interacting with others and learning from them.
beautiful. I'm glad you have activities to kind of take a break from work when you need it because you do a lot for these folks.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk specifically about St. John's United. Is there, you mentioned your mom
Mhm.
and taking care of her and that transition that you went through personally, but is there anything specific about St. John's that just stood out as a, wow, I want to work here. This is a great place.
I think you hear this a lot in various communities and various aspects, but I think the staff really does care for our senior residents as if they were family. And that's there's a distinction between just caring for someone and making sure they get what they need, and then there's someone who cares for someone and really understands where they're coming from and what their need is and why they're wanting that. And so at St. John's, I feel like we each have individual connections with our residents. Some probably better than others. Some obviously become our favorites, and others become others' favorites. And that's kind of the beauty of community is that you find your people and you find the group that really works for you. And so even though we have 12 different living communities on campus, there are people within each of those communities who make you feel like you're part of a family. And you can come in and you can play bingo on Thursday, and then the following Tuesday you can go to another cottage, let's say, and paint an art picture and feel just
Awesome.
as at home as you were, playing bingo. So it really does have a family feel in the living communities.
I have personally witnessed you serving somebody in a way that feels like family. We visited a gal last
Yeah.
week and you knew who the people were in her family pictures and taking the time to sit down with her, talk through those things and share those memories. I guarantee that was a special part of her day. So the fact that you took time out of yours to do that, that told me a lot about you as well as just the St. John's approach. So thank
Well,
you.
yeah, thank you. And again, that's the benefit of my job is that I do have the ability to sit down with various residents, talk to them about their family, share experiences, share stories, things of that sort. So, and that's what makes my day fully complete.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I can see nobody can see your face right now
Yeah.
except me, but I can tell you you love what you do.
I do. I do. I'm very fortunate.
Nice.
And I'm really fortunate in the fact that, I was a little bit later in life when I fell into that position. So
Mhm.
I had spent, most of my professional career out kind of working at college athletics and things of that sort. So to all of a sudden go from working with college age adults to seniors was really quite a transition and yet most rewarding.
So day to day, it sounds like every day is a little bit different for you in your
Mhm.
current role, but what does it look like?
Oh, there's a lot of calendar planning.
Okay.
There's a lot of looking at like forecasting ahead of time, like looking at the events that are planned for say next week or the following weeks, and saying like, well, what are we missing? Where could we add the bookmobile in? Where could we add the Billings Library? Could we get MSU Billings choral concert? Could we involve Billings Christian schools and things of that sort? So really looking ahead at the calendar and just being able to, in some ways, ad lib and improvise and find a way to, connect them to, is it gardening? Connect them to stained glass making or connect them to whatever, whatever activity that could be. So
Yeah.
obviously right now we're really kind of gearing up for Halloween. We're getting ready for Thanksgiving. We're starting to plan for the holidays and just trying to make sure that some of the activities that we've done in years past, we continue to do. And um, and we already have Santa Claus lined up. So that's a
Wow.
good thing.
You guys are on it. He's a
Yeah.
busy
Yeah.
guy,
He
so
is a
glad you
busy
got him
guy.
on the calendar. Do you have a favorite activity that you've done with these residents?
I do have a lot of favorite activities. I love it when we can take them out to, like if we go out for lunch or if we go out for dinner. If they love live music, so if we go listen to live music, it's fun to watch them just kind of get back into their element when they were, in their 60s or 50s or however old that is, and they're out having a good time and they're enjoying. We've got a great partnership with the art house, and so taking them to a movie at the art house, and watching them fill up their bucket with or their bowl with uh, popcorn and butter.
Yeah.
Sometimes more butter than popcorn, but they fill that up, and then they sit in the movie theater, and it really is like they're almost like back to junior high girls where they're talking about did you see so and so actor, and I saw him, and I saw this and we did that, and and it's just fun to watch them kind of reminisce. So I think like getting them out into that environment is really it's just special. Honestly, it really is. And then oftentimes like we'll have speakers come into be it Mission Ridge or Chapel Court, the Vista. We'll have speakers come in and do like an educational session on something. And again, watching them just really engage with that speaker or performer, and watching their reaction to his or her action is just it's heartwarming. Honestly,
You guys do a really good job of bringing in a variety of folks,
we do.
which is very intentional. I know when I heard people really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. We try to, a couple years ago, a young ballerina, or a ballerina from Miami, Florida, called and said, like, "Hey, I'd like to come up." And at first, I thought, "What in the world?" And so we brought her up, and she loves it. And the residents loved her. The kids in the Center for Generations loved her. I mean, everyone just fell in love with her, and so she's been back a couple times. And you just think about that. Like, here she is on the major stage in, Miami, Florida, doing Madame Butterfly in the principal role.
Yeah.
And like 3 weeks later, she's in Billings, Montana, with a with a costume that she wore in the opera performance, and she's dancing in front of a bunch of young kids, and she's as happy as we are, and the kids are thrilled. So I mean, it's pretty incredible to think about the way that we can touch lives and make a difference.
Absolutely. So, question about when somebody is ready to move into, let's focus on Mission Ridge.
Mhm.
They move in, they meet with all the people on the admissions teams, we get to know them. How does life enrichment play a role in that move in process?
So we meet with them too. We find out, what did you like to do? What were your hobbies? What sports did you play or did not play?
Hmm.
We want to know as much about them as they want to tell us. And then we take that and we try to help to craft them, like, to get them into a community. So if they like to play cards, every Tuesday and Thursday we have card players. If you like to play bridge, we've got it's on this day. If you like to play hand and foot or foot and mouth, it's on this day. And so we have the knowledge of what sort of community groups are meeting on our campus in various areas, and so we can help to ease that transition for people moving in so that it's not as scary. I mean, it's for a lot of folks it is. You go from a completely independent home where you're responsible for your yard work, your leaves, your, you know, everything, your house upkeep and whatnot. Now you come in and you live in this apartment, and you don't have to worry about vacuuming, you don't have to worry about laundry, you don't have to worry about the lawn. You really have sort of a carefree life, and your biggest goal is, or maybe not your biggest goal, but your biggest concern is like, what's for lunch?
Yeah.
When's dinner, kind
Yeah.
of thing. And so we don't want to isolate. We want you to become part of the community. So we want you to play cards. We want you to play pool. We want to get you into aqua aerobics. We want you to continue to lift weights. and we want you to explore. We have done like cookie decorating classes, we do art classes and things, and we are just in the process of talking with some couple local artists about coming in and doing like sip and paints. We want you to be involved in that, and sometimes people will participate, and then they'll be like, nah, that's not really for me, and that's okay, but we want you to try. And so then you might not want to participate again, but maybe there's something else you want to do. Maybe there's another activity, the duck pond, or trimming trees. We have some residents that still love to garden, so they're out there and growing their own vegetables and vegetables for everybody in the community. They're out there, pruning flowers and things of that sort. So we just try to make sure that we know what their interests are and that we can help guide them into those activities.
Beautiful. I think there's such a stigma against, senior living and moving into long-term care per se because you can't do anything that you used to. But that's
Right.
so not the case.
Right.
Not if you want it, I guess, anyways.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
We have a couple. We have some residents in long-term care that love to garden, and so our activities team, we make sure that when we're planting the garden, they're out there, they're planting it, they're telling us where to put the seed, they're telling us when to water, too much water, don't water, water more, things of that sort. So we really give them the opportunity to tell us what to do so that, their tomato plants can grow or their pumpkin patch can grow. And again, that's just kind of a beautiful thing to watch them still be active in the activities that they like to do.
Yes. I always joke, like, when can I move in?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to get on the waiting list. It sounds great.
It is pretty fun. It can be fun.
So, for somebody who is maybe thinking about moving into senior living themselves, or maybe they have a parent or a
Mhm.
grandparent who's debating making that move, is there any advice you would give to them as somebody who works in that setting?
When folks come to visit to see what it's like to live at Mission Ridge or the Vista or Chapel Court, they tend to see it as like old people.
Mm.
And that is true. Most of the people in there are, 70 or above, 80s, some in their 90s. We even have some in, 100-year-olds.
Awesome.
But at the same time, age is not the definer for your activity. So even though you see elderly people, you also see a lot of activity. And so what I would want them to concentrate on is like look at the activity opportunity and look at the opportunity for community. Because a lot of times, these elderly people, seniors are living at home, and when the winter months come, neighbors may still be there, but snow prevents them from getting together, weather prevents them from getting out and things. If you're living in community at Mission Ridge, at Vista, Chapel Court, wherever that might be, you still have the ability to every single day, 7 days a week, get out and be with people. You can play cards, you can swim, you can um, go to the library and read. We still do educational sessions and things of that sort. So I think it's more the fact of you should look at it instead of moving into isolation, but you're moving into community. And in community, there's activity, and in activity, there's life.
I like that. Well spoken,
Yeah,
Director of
thanks.
Community Engagement. But no, it's true. I mean, if you look at like the holistic person, the mental health, the physical health,
Mhm.
we're human beings, we're social by nature. So having a group of other social human beings to lean on and support us,
Yeah.
it's so, so important for your health.
Yeah, for sure. And even sometimes, even just the smallest of things, um, you know, medical for sure. You have access to almost 24-hour medical, but just having access to having someone there to say like, geez, I hit my elbow, and you know, it, just to have a conversation.
Mhm.
And the conversation doesn't have to be deep and meaningful. It just has to be a conversation where you know that you've been heard, and you know that you're hearing them, you're listening to them, and you're having some type of a community experience, which decreases the isolation. So maybe next time I might not talk about my elbow, but maybe next time I'll tell you about the book I'm reading. and who knows, you may like that. And it just, one little thing can lead to another, which leads to a big community, which is what we have at St. John's.
Which is very, very well spoken. I think, especially for the state of Montana, too. We're just so rural and spread out, and there's a lot of folks who are in the mindset of, I live in a small town, I'm going to stay in said small town.
Yes.
And that works for some.
Yes.
But if you are someone who thrives on that community environment, senior living might be for you before you know it.
Yes. And we actually have a fair number of folks who lived outside of Billings on farms and have since moved in, and now they're living in community, and they're doing great.
Yeah.
They're thriving, they're well cared for, they participate, they're given opportunities to reminisce about what they did on the farm, or what they used to do in the country, and just all sorts of fun things. And I think that's the beauty of what makes the community so special, is you have the people that grew up in the city, if you will, or a little more city life, and then you have those that are a little more rural, and so you get them all together, and it just really makes a nice blend of folks.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing all of
Yeah,
that.
you're welcome.
And I'm glad we got to steal you from the world of college athletics and
Yeah.
senior living, because you do a wonderful job with these folks, Kelly.
Well, thank you. Like I said, it really is a pleasure. So I'm very fortunate.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Finding
I'll
home
look
at
forward
St.
to it.
John's.
I'll look forward to it. Thanks.
Thanks for spending time with us here on Finding Home. If you enjoyed this conversation or thought of someone who might connect with it, we would love for you to share it with them. Every episode tells a different story about what it's like to find home when life changes, and we hope you'll listen to the others and be part of the journey with us. Special thank you to Rock 31, the team at Big Sky Economic Development, and St. John's United for making this project possible. Cheers to living life wherever you call home.